We're going to take a few simple ingredients and turn them into a variety of meals, a variety of ways. And best of all, they are long-term shelf stable for your prepper pantry. Hey guys, it's Jara with Wicked Prepared. Welcome back everyone. Today I've got some more shelf-stable meals in a jar for you. I'm very excited about what I'm making today because this is a three-way meal in a jar. I'm going to take one very simple base recipe, and just by switching up the seasonings and veggies that we add, we can have three very different tasting meals. This is also one of the quickest cooking jar meals out there, which can be important if you're rationing fuel in an emergency or if you just need to get dinner on the table fast. If you stick around, a little later in the video, I'll show you how you can adapt these recipes into a single serving mason jar slow cooker meal and a Mylar bag backpacking meal that's great for your bug out bag or just camping and backpacking. So many options, so little time, so let's go ahead and get started. The base meal that we're starting with is a creamy chicken and rice. This is basic comfort food. This is something that will probably appeal to even your pickiest eaters, as it did to mine. And if it's made as I'm making it with the ingredients that I'm listing, that I will link down in the description box below the video as I always do, I do believe it's a gluten-free dish. Now the basic recipe that will remain the same throughout all the meals includes chicken, of course, and the rice, velouté mix, and sour cream powder for the base sauce. On top of that, each recipe will include seasoning and vegetables, and that's where we'll be varying this base recipe into several different dishes. For the chicken, I'm using freeze-dried chicken, of course. I'm using diced chicken, so it's cut into these small pieces. You can use whatever chicken you want, whether you freeze-dry it yourself or purchase it. I'm using the small diced chicken for a couple of reasons. One, it's on sale for the month of January, so I just stocked up on a case of it. And the other reason is because everything else in this recipe cooks really quickly. So with these smaller pieces of chicken, I know they're going to be refreshed and tender and ready to go by the time everything else is ready. This chicken that I'm using today, the diced chicken, well, it's called diced chicken now. It was called chopped chicken. They changed the name, same product. You can see I've had this can in my food storage since 2021. So this is when it was called chopped chicken, but it's the same product. This, you can see here, the only ingredients in this are chicken. So this one has no salt added. From Thrive Life, this is the only chicken they have with no salt added. I'm not sure about other companies. And even if you freeze dry your own at home, a lot of the chicken you can purchase in the supermarket has been injected with like salt water. So even if you're freeze drying it yourself, you got to watch the sodium. So even though my favorite chicken that they have is these chicken slices, these are my favorite. I think they're the best chicken. They do have salt added. So if you're on a low sodium diet or you need to watch your sodium intake, this is going to be the chicken for you. No salt added, so it only has 20 milligrams of sodium. Just something to note. For the rice, I'm using minute rice or instant rice. This is the main reason why this dish cooks so quickly and why it can also be done as a backpacking style meal where you just dump boiling water in and seal it up and don't even have to actually cook it. And this also means that our veggies won't be overcooked by the time the rice is done. I'm using white minute rice here, but they also make brown minute rice or instant rice. Minute rice, of course, is the brand name, but you can also get store brands. For the sauce, I'm using velouté, which is a special chicken gravy mix, and sour cream powder. If you don't have the velouté and you can't get it, I did do a video where I made substitutes for these gravy mixes. I'll link that down below in the description box. However, if you watched that video, you might recall that was the one mix I just couldn't get quite as yummy as the original. So I do recommend using the actual velouté mix if you can. The sour cream powder I'm using is from Thrive Life. And I will say this is one ingredient where I have noticed differences between brands. I typically use Thrive Life, but I had bought another brand when that was unavailable. And when I went to use it, it had a much different flavor than what I was used to. It was much, much tangier. Now, I'm not really saying anything negative about that particular brand. I'm just saying it was a different flavor and it didn't work in equal substitutions in the recipes that have been developed with the other sour cream powder. There are certain ingredients where I do notice differences like that between the brands. That's why I always try to tell you what brand I'm using as well as any other brands I've tried that are similar enough, and I always include links for you down below to any of the harder to find items. For all of these meals, I'm going to be using a wide mouth quart size mason jar. Now you can expect to get about 3 to 4 servings out of this size of jar. Of course, that depends on a lot of things. For example, what else you're serving alongside of it and the appetites of the people that you're serving. The other thing that I'm going to use is going to be a canning funnel just to make things easier. And other than that, all you really need are your measuring cups and spoons and your ingredients. There's really no special equipment required for this. If you want to store them on the shelf long term, you will need some oxygen absorbers to seal them. Usually that's if you want to store them more than a few months. I have successfully stored meals like this on the shelf for a year without an oxygen absorber, but just to be safe, it's usually good to use one if you plan to store it more than a few months. Some people use a vacuum sealer on jar meals like this. I really personally don't believe that gives it as long of a shelf life as the oxygen absorbers, but I've never really done it with a vacuum sealer, so I'm not sure. If you've used vacuum sealers on your jar meals, then let us know down in the comments about your experience. For the basic creamy chicken and rice, I'm going to be starting with the chicken. And I'm going to use 1 cup of the chicken. And next I'm going to add our basic sauce ingredients, the velouté and the sour cream powder. So I'm going to start with the velouté, and I'm adding 1/3 cup of each of these ingredients. So 1/3 cup of the velouté and 1/3 cup of the sour cream powder. Now next, before I add the rice, I'm going to add all the other seasoning ingredients. So for this basic recipe, it's not much. I only have 1 seasoning ingredient, and that's going to be Chef's Choice. Now this is sort of a multi-purpose seasoning ingredient, an all-purpose seasoning. So if you don't have this, you can use anything. This is kind of salty, garlicky. It does have an extra little zing of flavor in it that a lot of other seasonings don't. I kind of think it's like a Worcestershire sauce type of flavor, is my opinion, but we've come to really, really like this. But if you don't have it, anything that has, salty, garlicky, peppery kind of flavors in it, you could substitute. I'm going to be using 1 teaspoon of the Chef's Choice. And that's it for this one for seasoning. So I'm going to go on to the rice. Of course, I'm using the instant white rice. And I'm going to be adding 1 1/4 cups. 1 1/4. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, you could do brown rice instead if you wanted instant brown rice. So next, I'm going to go on to the veggies. And this one is pretty basic. It's going to be peas, carrots, and some mushrooms. Now, if you don't like any of those things or you don't have any of those things, you can vary this. Each of these recipes has the same base recipe with its additional seasonings, and then about 1 cup to 1 1/4 cups of different vegetables. So you can always vary that based on what you have on hand or what sounds good to you in that particular recipe or what your family likes or dislikes. I'm going to be starting with peas, and I'm using a 1/2 cup of peas. And these are freeze-dried peas. Most of the veggies in my jar meals are usually freeze-dried because you just get a much better, sort of fresher result with freeze-dried veggies, but there are a few things that are dehydrated, so I'll tell you which ones those are. And one of them is actually going to be the carrots. Carrots don't do well freeze-drying, so we usually see those dehydrated. So for the carrots, I'm going to be using 1/8 cup, which is the same as 2 tablespoons. I do have a 1/8 cup measure, but I think it's in the dishwasher. So I'm just going to use 2 tablespoons. If you have a measuring set that includes the 1/8 cup, guard it with your life because they don't all include that. And it's just easier to scoop 1 thing than 2 things. But we're going to use 2 tablespoons, which is the same as the 1/8 cup. 2 tablespoons of the dehydrated carrots. That's also why it's such a small amount. Dehydrated foods shrivel right up and then they expand more when they are cooked and rehydrated, so you use a much smaller amount, especially with carrots. They tend to be really strong flavored. And then the final ingredient for this jar is going to be mushrooms. And I am using a 1/4 cup of mushrooms. So that pretty much fills our jar up, and it leaves just enough room for the oxygen absorber on the top. Now, of course, I am going to fix one of these up tonight to show you how it turns out. So now these tags that I use, I get these right at Dollar Tree. I don't use the Dollar Tree chalk pens. Those are no bueno, but I just tie this little knot and I put it onto a rubber band, and that way these are reusable. They don't erase very well where they're wooden. This paint isn't very erasable, the chalkboard paint, but you can just use them on the same meal again. I just slip this around the neck of the jar. Okay, to show you how I'm going to prepare these meals, I'm going to use my Coleman butane emergency stove. This is what we would typically use to cook indoors during an emergency. It's what we do use to cook indoors when our power's out because we have an electric stove. It does run on butane fuel, which is this cartridge right here. Just lock it in and it's ready to go. It does have an automatic ignition. Very inexpensive, very easy to use, and actually very powerful. I've just got a medium saucepan here, and these meals use about 3.5 cups of water. So to cook up the creamy chicken and rice, I'm just going to open up the jar and empty it right into the saucepan. And I'm actually going to put my water into my mason jar just to get out any last bits of sauce mix that are stuck to the jar. Now remember, your jar does have markings on the side. So if you were in an emergency and you didn't have a lot of cooking utensils, you could just measure the water in your jar. I haven't been getting perfectly accurate measurements out of it, but I think it's because these easy read measuring cups, which are my favorite, but we don't have a single level surface in our house. We live in a really old house, so nothing is level. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to read things like that. Because on this jar, it's measuring about 3 cups, but in my measuring cup, I measured 3.5. So we'll say 3 to 3.5 cups water. Like anything else, you know, if you fix it up and you wish it was a little bit drier, you can add less water next time. Or if you're fixing it and it's too dry or certain things in it are not getting tender enough and not fully rehydrating, then you might need to add a little bit more water. And that would pretty much go for any meal in a jar. I'm just going to stir this until everything's moistened before I turn on the heat. But yeah, with the meals in a jar, you can try them out and make adjustments if you need to, based on your personal preferences or where you live. Right now, a lot of these ingredients are on sale, so it's a great time to buy in bulk and then make up a whole bunch of meals in a jar all at once. It's a real big time saver because just line up your jars and your ingredients, and it really doesn't take much longer to prepare, 10 or 12 jars than it does to prepare one. Especially with a recipe like this where you can do all the different variations and you can get a lot of different variety with one session. But I always recommend that people try each meal at least once. Just make up one of each meal and try it just to make sure that it's something you're going to like before you go ahead and make a whole bunch of them. Because just because my family likes something doesn't mean that yours will. Everyone has different tastes and different preferences, and also you might find that you need to adjust something like the amount of salt or the amount of water, things like that. And then once you've tried it, you know you like it, you've made any adjustments that you need to, then you can make it in bulk. All right, this is all moistened. I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat on. I'm going to start it off pretty high to bring it up to a simmer. Then as soon as it comes to a simmer, I'm going to turn it way down and put a lid on it, and it's really only going to need to go for 3 to 5 minutes before we turn the heat off, and then it'll just set a little bit longer. I am going to stir it pretty frequently just because we don't want that rice to settle to the bottom and stick to the bottom like rice can tend to do. But the cooking instructions on all of these quart jar meals is going to be the same, so that makes it pretty simple. Now, incidentally, if we had put the lid on, it would have probably come to a simmer a little bit faster, but you'd have to watch it really carefully to make sure that it didn't get going and bubble over. So I usually prefer to start with the lid off. But if you're really trying to conserve fuel, then put it on. But this stove is really, really strong. All right, so now that you can see that it's starting to simmer, I am going to put the lid on and I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And like I said, it's just going to need 3 to 5 minutes. And it's not going to be completely done at that point. It's still going to have a little bit of extra liquid, but at that point it's going to be done enough that if we just turn it off and let it set for 5-10 more minutes, it's going to be done. So I'm going to turn this down at this point, and I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for 3 minutes. And even now, I'm still going to open it up every once in a while and just give it a little stir, because as this starts to soak up the liquid and the rice starts to thicken, there's even more of a chance that it could stick to the bottom of the pot. So we just want to keep it stirred. All right, so at 3 minutes, it is thickening up, but I think it could stand to go just a little bit longer on the burner. So I'm going to give it to 5 minutes. And by that, I just mean 2 extra minutes over the 3 I just did. All right, so that has been 5 minutes. You can see that it has thickened up a lot. So at this point, I am turning off the heat, but I'm just going to let it set here on the burner with the lid on for another 5 or 10 minutes. All right, ready to serve. There we go. I cannot wait to dig into this. This is total comfort food. There's no, strong flavors. This is going to appeal to everyone. I absolutely love how there's meat and vegetables literally in every bite. You're not going to get that in some kind of commercial emergency meal that you were to buy, but this that you made yourself is perfect. It's so warm and creamy and comforting. This is perfection. Now, I mentioned how fast and easy it is to make these up in bulk, so I just thought I would demonstrate that. I'm going to make up half a dozen of the regular creamy chicken and rice. Now let me just mention, I did use one funnel in each jar. For me, that would be almost the most time-consuming thing, moving the funnels around from jar to jar. And these little canning funnels are like $2 at Walmart. So I had amassed several of them over time, and I just went and bought several more. So I've got enough to do probably a dozen jars at a time if I wanted to. You also might notice in these, I did put some peas down before the rice. The order you put things in sometimes matters and sometimes doesn't. If you're trying to fit more stuff in the jar than you really have room for, you want to put bulkier things on the bottom, powdery things on the top so that they can filter down through. Sometimes for looks, it's nice to put some of the more colorful vegetables in the middle. This had a lot of white, the chicken, the sauce, the rice. So I decided to put some of the colorful veggies in the middle just to break it up and make it look nicer. This jar, we have plenty of room, so we're not trying to fit in too much stuff. So it's not as important what order we put things in, but part of the reason we have so much space is because I did put the powders on top of the chicken so they could fill in the spaces in the chicken. If I had put the powders first, they would fill the bottom and everything else would set on top of them so they wouldn't share space. Just a couple tricks for doing these meals in a jar. The next variation I'm going to make is going to be a Southwest chicken and rice. And of course, I'm starting with the same wide mouth quart jar and my canning funnel, and it's going to be the same base. It's going to be the chicken, the rice, the velouté, and the sour cream. Then we'll start adding our seasonings. So 1 cup of chicken, 1/3 of a cup of velouté, and 1/3 of a cup of sour cream powder. And this is where things start to change a little bit with the seasonings. I am still going to be using the teaspoonful of Chef's Choice. That stays constant across the recipes. But next, I'm going to be adding some freeze-dried minced garlic, a tablespoon of this, also a tablespoon of freeze-dried cilantro. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of lime juice powder. This is one of my most favorite ingredients. I love lime. And I will put a link to where I get this down in the description box. 2 teaspoons. And next, I'm going to be adding chili powder and cumin. I'm going to be adding 1 teaspoon of each. And these dispensers that I like to use, they dispense 1/4 teaspoon per click of this dial. So I don't need to use my measuring spoons. That's what I love about these. You can also shake out the back, or you can open it here and spoon out. That's also where you can fill them. So I'm doing 1 teaspoon of each of these, which is going to be 4 clicks of the dial. 1, 2, 3, 4. I like to give it a little smack just in case any gets stuck in the little channel that measures it out. And then it closes up here so you don't lose anything and it's all sealed up. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that is all the seasoning. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the rice, 1.25 cups of rice. There's 1 cup and 1/4. And next we're on to the veggie mix, which is going to be the other thing that makes this recipe different. So I'm going to be starting with corn. A 1/4 cup of corn. This is freeze-dried corn. The corn actually is on sale this month, as is the chicken and our next ingredient, which is going to be instant black beans. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of the instant black beans. I'm using some mixed bell pepper. Now this is dehydrated bell pepper. I did tell you I would let you know which ingredients are dehydrated instead of freeze-dried. That the instant beans are dehydrated and these mixed bell peppers are. I'm going to go ahead and use 1/8 cup of these, which is 2 tablespoons. I did find my 1/8 cup measure. 2 tablespoons of the chopped onion. And this is freeze-dried onion, not dehydrated. And then the final ingredient I'm going to add to this recipe is going to be some freeze-dried chopped green chilies. Now these are not spicy chilies. These are pretty mild. They're like the chilies that you get chopped in a can at the grocery store. And I'm going to be using 1/8 cup of these also. All right, so there we go. This jar is all ready to go. Room for the oxygen absorber and to get it on the shelf. Now to prepare the Southwest chicken and rice. And once again, I'm going to be using my butane burner and my heavy bottom medium saucepan. And I'm going to be doing the exact same process. So I'm just going to open the jar, empty this. Look how good that looks. Empty this right into my saucepan. And once again, about 3.5 cups of water. But on my jar, that actually comes to just over the 3-cup mark. Not sure which is more accurate. And I'm just going to give this a stir until everything's moistened, and then we'll turn on the heat. It smells so good. Considering these all start with the same base recipe, they all taste very different. All right, now that everything's moistened, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my burner. Same process as before. I'm just going to bring this up to a simmer, turn it down, put on the lid. I'm going to stir occasionally, cook it for about 3 to 5 minutes on the heat, and then turn off the heat for another 5 to 10 minutes. And then it's going to be ready to eat. All right, so here is this meal at 3 minutes. This is actually looking a little more done, I think, than the other one did, but just for the heck of it, look at how beautiful this is. Look at all the colors from all the veggies and the beans. You can see all the chunks of chicken. That's really amazing for a convenience meal that's completely shelf stable and can be whipped up in an emergency. I'm going to try to get this down a little bit lower and let it go 2 more minutes. You know what? It's been 4 minutes and this is pretty thick and still really, really bubbling. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off at 4 minutes because I can't really get it turned down much lower than that. And all this really needs is some setting time now. All right, so it's been 5 minutes. And this is looking pretty good. I might let this go another 5 just to get this a little bit more thickened up. This is going to be amazing. Here it is after sitting for 10 minutes. Now this is definitely ready to go. Look at that. Okay, let's try it. This one's my favorite. This is so good. I absolutely love the Southwest flavors in this. You can really taste the lime. A little word about the lime. I am a lime fiend. Like, I absolutely love lime. So when I was developing this recipe and I was using 2 teaspoons of lime juice powder, I was a little worried that it might be too much, especially where I love it and I probably wouldn't notice. But Mr. Wicked Prepared is not a huge lime fiend like I am, and he liked this. He thought this was perfect. My son loved this. He totally lit up when he tried this. So I don't think it's too much. If you really, really don't like the flavor of lime, you might want to cut that down. But Firehouse Flavors, which is the store I get the lime juice powder from, and I absolutely adore this store. Go check them out. I'm going to have a link to their store down in the description box. They have an amazing array of powdered ingredients, powdered flavorings. It's incredible. If you like things like meals in a jar, making dip mixes, anything like that, you will absolutely go crazy. They're like a kid in a candy store. That's what I do. But once again, just like the other meal, it's really incredible. Basically, every single bite of this meal is full of, there's chicken in every bite, there's veggies in every bite. This is really, really, really a good meal. Now, the third variation I'm going to do on this recipe is going to be a curry chicken and rice. So once again, I'm going to start with my wide mouth quart-size mason jar, and I'm going to start with the same base ingredients. 1 cup of chicken, 1/3 cup of velouté, and 1/3 cup of sour cream powder, as well as my teaspoon of chef's choice. The additional seasonings I'm putting in the curry recipe are just curry powder. Now this is just your regular mild yellow curry powder, just like you would get in the regular spice section of the grocery store. This isn't spicy. And I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of the curry powder, which is going to be 4 clicks of my dial. And then the only other seasoning I'm adding into this one is going to be salt, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now we're going to add our 1.25 cups of instant rice. And now onto the vegetables. For this meal, I'm going to be using the peas again. So I'm going to use 1/2 cup of peas. And then I'm going to use some red bell pepper. Now this time these bell peppers are freeze-dried, not dehydrated. But because these are slices and I kind of want smaller pieces, I'm going to just break them up into little smaller pieces like dices. Now freeze-dried fruits and vegetables and things are very crisp and light, so they're very, very easy to just break into whatever size piece you want if you want a smaller piece. They don't need to be super tiny. Pieces like this are fine. Really, however you want it. I just don't want really long slices in this dish. You could even just pick out the more broken pieces like these and just use those. And these are actually so delicious to just eat like this. Super healthy snack. Even my kids who don't really love fresh bell peppers will eat these because they're so super sweet and just very yummy. Right, so now that I've got my 1/2 cup of smaller pepper pieces, I'm going to go ahead and add this in. And then the only other thing going in here is going to be another 1/8 cup of carrots. And there we are. There is our third full-size jar meal to put on the shelf. And now to fix up this final version, the curry chicken and rice. Same method as before. I can already smell that curry. That smells so good. Curry is one of my most favorite things. And I can't say that for every member of this household, but even the non-curry lovers enjoyed this meal. Okay, now that this is all moistened, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it on. Bring it up to a simmer, put a lid on it. We're gonna let it go 3 to 5 minutes and then let it set off the heat 5 to 10 minutes, just like the other meals. And this is looking pretty ready. I'm just gonna let it cool off for a few minutes and then we'll serve it. All right, let's give this one a try. Look at the beautiful colors of the vegetables. I love them. I love curry. I really do. This is really delicious. But let me tell you, it's not a very exotic flavor. It's not spicy. It's not anything like that. So even if you think that you don't like curry or you think that you don't like, this type of food, give it a try. It's pretty mild and it's really enjoyable. Like I said, Mr. Wicked Prepared doesn't like curry, but he really enjoyed this meal. And of course, on the flip side of that, if you do like your food a little bit spicier and a little bit more exotic, you can go ahead and add some cayenne pepper or some more spices, anything you want to zing this up. But I really like it just as it is. It's delicious and comforting and full of vegetables. Now I'm going to show you a couple other ways you can prepare these meals for even more options. The first one I'm doing is about 1/4 of the original recipe, and it's going to be a single serving. However, I'm going to make it in a wide mouth pint jar, which is about half the capacity of the quart that we did the big meal in. That's going to leave enough room so that I can add the water and cook it right in the jar with my little mason jar slow cooker. So this would be great to bring to work or for college students in dorms and things like that. We're going to be using all the same ingredients as the larger meals, just in different quantities. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of the chopped chicken, and I'm going to use 2 tablespoons each of the velouté and the sour cream powder. Now remember, 2 tablespoons is the same as the 1/8 of a cup measure, so whichever you have. There's the velouté and the sour cream powder. Now I'm just going to prepare the original basic creamy chicken and rice this way, but I will have the recipes, the modified recipes for all 3 of the recipes so that you can create them all in these single serving jars if you'd like. The only one I'm going to do on video is the basic one because I don't want this video to be too long. 1/4 teaspoon of Chef's Choice. And then the instant rice, I'm going to be adding 5 tablespoons of instant rice. So that's basically the same as a 1/4 cup plus a tablespoon. So there's my 1/4 cup and my additional tablespoon. Now for the veggies, I'm going to be adding an 1/8 of a cup of the peas, which is 2 tablespoons if you don't have the 1/8 of a cup measure, a tablespoon of the mushrooms, and a 1/2 tablespoon of the carrots. Now that is it. And you can see it only fills this jar about halfway. I'm not sure if you can see that, but that's going to leave me that extra space to cook it right in the jar. So if you're not going to prepare it in the jar like I am, you could get away with using a half pint jar to store your ingredients for single servings, and then just dump it and the water into whatever container you're going to cook it in. And here's this one all labeled. Now, something I did want to mention about the labels. Now, keep in mind, of course, I'm doing mine for the channel and I might be taking pictures of them, so I like them to look kind of cute. So I use these tags. They work pretty well for me. And like I said, they're only from Dollar Tree, and I think it's 4 in a package for $1. And some people really like their pantry to look a certain way too. But if that's not important to you, it's really not important how you label these. You could just write on the tops of the lids. I like something on the front, so when they're sitting on my shelf, I can see it. You could, use any kind of sticky label. You could even use masking tape. And in fact, these little white markers, this came with some labels that I got, so I'm not really sure what kind of marker this is, but these actually write really well on these lids and even right on the glass. I've labeled some things right on the glass. So really, any way that you label these, whatever works for you will be fine. Now to prepare the single serving meal right here, I'm going to be using my Presto Nomad little mini food warmer. I love this thing so much. It has a lid. It is made for heating these little wide mouth pint mason jars. That's exactly what it's made for. It works great. I've cooked several different types of meals in this cooker, right in the jar. It does have this little pocket right here that you could put some salt and pepper packets, or if you had a soup in there and you wanted some crackers or some croutons, you could put a little folding spoon if you had something like that. It has cord storage. The cord wraps right around and stores right inside the base. It has a handle, so it's great for taking with you. The very sad thing, I've had this for a few years, the very sad thing is I don't think they're making this anymore. Up until just recently, I bought mine at Walmart, probably about 3-4 years ago, and it was around $20 to $25. And up until just recently, I could still find it sold online. But recently, I'm having a hard time finding it. And I find it places like eBay. I think that they may have discontinued it, which makes me really, really sad. So maybe if we all write them letters and beg them to bring it back, maybe there's power in numbers, right? Because I think this is perfect for, it's great for college students and things. My daughter can use this when she's out at the barn for the day working. A lot of people like to take this to work. It's just got a lot of really great uses for a single person. Now, it's actually meant for warming food, not cooking it, like putting prepared food into the mason jar and bringing it along and warming it. But because these freeze-dried, meals in a jar that we make cook so quickly and so efficiently, it works great for meals like this. It can cook the whole meal. But if you don't have one of these and you can't get one, I'll put any links I can find down in the description box. But like I said, it might not be available anymore. Keep an eye out for them at thrift shops and yard sales and things like that. If you can't find one of these, I know that I think it's Crock-Pot makes a little lunch crock. It's like an individual size slow cooker, and it wouldn't hold the actual jar, but I bet it would work for preparing one of these individual serving size meals. I don't have one. I've never used one, so I'm not 100% certain. But if you have one of those, let me know if you think that it would work for a meal like this. You just dump it out of the jar and cook it right in the little slow cooker. And in that case, you'd be able to use the half pint jars to put these meals in because you wouldn't need the extra room for the water and the smelling of the meal. You know, right after I recorded this, I opened up YouTube and my friend Natasha from the Budget Preppers had just released a video where she cooked a meal in a jar in a Hot Logic portable oven. And I thought, you know what, maybe that would work for these meals. The one she used is a larger oven, but they have little personal size ones too. So I'm going to link her video down below so you can go over and check that out. She's actually having a giveaway for the Hot Logic oven. And the Hot Logic ovens are really cool because, like I said, they have a big one and they have a small one, a personal size one. And you can get it with a regular wall plug for in the house or a plug for in your car. So I thought that was really awesome. So I'll put the link down below. Head on over and check out her channel. I believe she said she's giving away more Hot Logic items in upcoming videos. So go ahead on over there, check out her video, subscribe, and maybe you can even win one of those Hot Logic portable ovens. But let's get started and I will show you how I use my little cooker to prepare this single serving meal. All right, so to get started, I'm just taking this lid right off. And I'm also taking the lid off of my mason jar. And then this goes right in here. And then I'm going to add my water. I'm starting with 3/4 of a cup of cold water. Just going to give that a little stir and scrape up all the sauce ingredients. And now I'm just going to add 2 more tablespoons of water. So it's 3/4 of a cup plus 2 tablespoons. Now the important thing to remember with meals like this is that, you know, you can adapt it if you try it, because it actually can make a difference, the climate you live in, if you live in a dry area or not. I've had people who had to adjust their water amounts or their, you know, cooking methods based on the climate where they live. So you're trying the recipe, and then you can also adjust seasonings, anything like that, to make it perfect for you. Now we do put the lid back on to use the slow cooker, just the flat. You don't put the ring back on, just the flat. And then I'm going to put this lid back on. And then I've just got to unwind the cord and plug it in. And this is only going to take, I don't know, probably about an hour, and it will be all warmed and all the water absorbed and all ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. That's how you turn it on. You don't even need to put a switch. Just plug it in, it turns on, and I'll see you back here when it's done. All right, so let's see. After 1 hour, wow, that looks perfect. Check that out. Chicken, mushrooms, peas, carrots, and of course the rice. So we can take this right out. It is a little hot, so you might want something to hold it with. As long as I hold it up at the top, above the level of the food, it's not too bad. Wow, look at all those veggies and chunks of chicken. This is amazing for a fast meal. The other way we can do these meals is by dividing them about in half and putting them in these Mylar MRE pouches. This is going to create a backpacking meal similar to these meals, or these meals that are very popular with hikers and preppers alike. To prepare these meals, all you need to do is boil water, pour it into the pouch, seal the pouch, and let it set for 5 to 10 minutes, and that's ready to eat. Meals with the instant rice are perfect for this method because it just needs to soak up the water and it's done. Nothing in this meal really needs actual cooking. These type of pouch meals are great to stash in your emergency supplies in your vehicle, or in your bug out bag, or to take with you on your outdoor adventures. For that matter, these would probably also be great for college students. This recipe is going to be half of the original jar. So really it's a 2-serving pouch more than a single serving. But if you look at the commercially available meals, they also are labeled as more than 1 serving, but I can guarantee you a hungry hiker can eat the whole meal. The next way I want to show you how to make these is using these MRE pouches. I honestly really love these. They're from Wallaby. We really love Wallaby. They have really good quality Mylar bags. You can get these from their website, and they also have them on Amazon. So if you see these on Amazon, I trust these. Sometimes it's tough buying Mylar bags from Amazon because you never really know what quality you're actually getting, regardless of what the listing says. But Wallaby stuff is always good. They always include the appropriate oxygen absorbers right with the bags that you buy from them. So here's what they look like. I really love that these are wider than they are tall, because some different meals come in taller, narrower pouches. And if you are preparing them right in the pouch, like you're pouring the water right in, stirring it up and eating out of the pouch, which a lot of people do, especially if you're backpacking or something, it's more difficult to eat in the deeper pouches. Your hands getting down in there and getting all messy, and it's just hard to stir to the bottom of the pouch. So I love that these are shallower. You can see they do have a gusseted bottom, which means that they're gonna open up on the bottom so they can stand right up, and they're also easier to fill and easier to stir that way. They have the Ziploc. The Ziploc is not really for long-term storage. What you would want to do is, if you fill a bunch of these and you want to store them for a while, you seal the Ziploc, and then you would use your heat sealer, impulse sealer. You could use a hair straightener or an iron, a clothes iron, anything like that. You would seal above this little tear notch so that it's sealed really well. And then when you want to open them, you just tear the tear notch, and then you have the Ziploc to close it up after you've poured the boiling water in while it's sitting. Or if you don't finish the whole pouch and you want to put some of it away, you'll have the Ziploc to use. So to work with these pouches, I just like to open up that gusset really well at the bottom. And you can kind of see it down in there. I just like to run my fingers along that to really smooth it out and open it up, to get rid of all the crevices so that it's easy to mix my ingredients. So there you go. If you can see that, that's all ready to go. And this opens up pretty well, so I don't really even need the funnel, especially since I'm using smaller measurements. This is going to be about half of the original recipe, but you could certainly use a funnel if it was easier for you. Once again, I'm going to just do the plain creamy chicken and rice meal in the pouch to show you how that works, but then I will have the adapted recipes for both of the others as well, so you can make up as many pouches like this as you want. I also wanted to mention, keep in mind any of these meals in any sizes could be made in Mylar or in the mason jars, whichever you prefer. Some people make all of their meals in Mylar, even the quart size ones. You can usually fit a little bit more into Mylar if you want to give heaping servings. But also if sometimes people like them because they can be easier for storage, especially people who live in maybe earthquake country or maybe in an RV or places like that. So you could make any of these size meals in a Mylar bag. You just need the appropriate size Mylar bag. And likewise, you could make this half size meal in a pint jar if you didn't want to do it in the Mylar bags. I know a lot of people who have a smaller family size, like a single person or just a couple without any children at home, will often like to use pint jars and have these recipes. So half a cup of chicken, a quarter cup each of the velouté and the sour cream powder. It looks like I'm gonna have to go get another velouté probably. Let's see how much this is. Yeah, I'm gonna need to go get a little bit more so I can show you how these mixes come. So this is how these sauces come. They come in a can. This is about a quart size can. I've traditionally always marked the date that I purchased the item on the lid of the can. And I do that, number one, because I store my extras in cardboard boxes right now. And so I want to be able to read as I'm looking down into the box, but also to make sure that I'm grabbing the oldest can first. We are changing up our system a little bit. Instead of handwriting this, we're going to start printing little labels for the cans, and they do have a manufacturing date on the bottom. Like you can see, this one was manufactured in 10 of 2021. I bought it in 11 of 2021, so not much difference, but we are reorganizing things and doing printed labels and using the manufacture date instead of my purchase date, but just anything to keep things properly rotated. In these cans, until the cans are opened, they do have a shelf life of 10 years, which is one of many reasons that I like buying these cans. I will empty this into my canister, but I do like to wash the canisters in between refilling them, so I'll do that later. So I've got my quarter cup of velouté, quarter cup of the sour cream powder, and a half a teaspoon of the chef's choice. And next, for the rice, I'm going to be using 5/8 of a cup of rice, which is going to be a half of a cup plus another 1/8 of a cup or 2 tablespoons. And next, for the veggies, I'm going to be putting in a quarter cup of the peas, an 1/8 of a cup of the mushrooms, and 1 tablespoon of the carrots. Okay, so now that's all the ingredients that we need in there. But what I do like to do is give everything a mix and get everything as pretty well distributed as I can right off the bat. Now, sometimes when I open up the commercially prepared meals, it does look really nice because you can see, all those nice veggies up at the top of the packet, but I just prefer to have mine really well mixed. It's just less mixing to do later on when you add the water. So I'm just going to use one of the spoons I already measured with and kind of give everything a good mix. You can also seal the bag up and give it a little shake. All right, so now that's pretty well mixed. And so now this can be sealed up. Now, if you were going to be storing this for long-term storage, you would want to add one of those oxygen absorbers into the bag. Make sure that you know how to work with oxygen absorbers before you get started, because once you open up one of those packets they're sealed in, they start absorbing oxygen right away. So you want to have as many meals ready to go as you can. Work quickly, open your oxygen absorbers, put them in, and seal the meals right up. And then any oxygen absorbers you have left over from that open package, you want to seal those up airtight, like maybe the smallest size mason jar that you can fit them in. That way you won't waste any of those oxygen absorbers. But I'm just going to seal this one up with the Ziploc because I am going to be fixing this one right up to show you how it comes together. I do like to press as much air out as I can before I seal it, even if you're using the oxygen absorbers, because they absorb oxygen, but the air inside your container is going to be made up of a lot of other gases besides oxygen. So they're not going to remove all the air. They're just going to absorb the oxygen so that the contents stay fresh. So I also like to physically remove as much of the air as I can. All right, now this is sealed up and ready to go. And now I'm going to show you how to prepare this backpacking style pouch meal. Now I'm going to be using my electric tea kettle to get the hot water. Now if you're at home, this is great. If it's like a college student in a dorm, this is a great option. Of course, if you're actually backpacking, you can boil the water in a backpacking stove. If you're using this meal in an emergency at home, you can use the butane burner to boil water. You just need some boiling water any way that you can get it. The other thing I have here that I'm going to use today is this lunchbox. Now this is just a really cheap padded insulated lunchbox from Walmart. You can actually see this one has been through a lot. It's probably been through the laundry a lot. It's been carried, to school a lot, but it will still do the trick. A lot of the time I can find these marked down less than $1 when all the back to school stuff goes on clearance. But what I'm going to use this for is like a cozy for the meal, so that after I pour the boiling water into the pouch, I'm going to put it inside of this lunchbox and seal it up. And it's just going to help hold some of the warmth in to make sure that it's going to stay warm and it's going to, refresh. This is optional. You don't have to do this, but I like to do this when I can. With like the vertical style pouch meals, they can go right in like that. With this style of pouches, it's going to slide in sideways like this. Okay, so let's open this up. Remember, I didn't seal this, so I don't have to tear it off. I just have to open the Ziploc. And there's our meal. I'm going to go ahead and just give it a stir. Redistribute those ingredients. And now we're going to add our boiling water, and we want 1.5 cups of boiling water. So I'm going to go ahead and just pour it in. And then I'm going to give it a quick mix. Just want to get all these ingredients mixed and submerged. All right, you can see there what that looks like. Now I'm going to seal this up. And I'm just going to slip it right inside of the pouch. Just like that. I'm going to seal up the pouch. And I'm just going to let it sit here for about 10 minutes. Last time 10 minutes did it, so we will check it at 10 minutes and see how it's doing. All right, so 10 minutes is up. Let's open this up and see how it's looking. Wow, look at that. Can you see that? Now at that point, you can let it sit a little bit longer and thicken up, or you could eat it if everything is tender. In this meal, you're going to want to check the chicken. That's the one thing. In the Southwest meal, it's the chicken and the beans are the two things that are going to take the longest to get tender. So you could try this and see if it's tender. That is pretty good, but I do think it can go maybe an extra 5 or so minutes. But last time this was done in 10 minutes. So I'm going to stick this back in the pouch and just let it go a little bit longer. All right, there's 5 more minutes, so let's check this out. See if you can see that. So I'm going to try another bite with chicken. That is perfect. And it's still plenty warm, but everything is tender and ready to eat. This would be a very, very, very welcome meal at the end of a long day hiking, or in the campground, or even during a winter power outage just right at home. This could serve 1 or 2 people, depending on how hungry they were. Okay guys, I hope this has given you a few more options for shelf-stable emergency meals to stock your pantry shelves, as well as a few alternative ways to package and prepare them to fit various situations and family sizes. The great thing about these meals that I showed you today is you can vary the ingredients that you use in numerous different ways to make even more different meals. I've given you 3 flavor variations. What other variations can you come up with? Leave your ideas down in the comments. I have a Facebook group that's dedicated to meals in a jar, so head on over there and join us. It's a great group and we would love to have you be a part of it. Don't forget to text SALE to my text number if you want to get notified every time there's a new sale or coupon for the freeze-dried ingredients that I use in my jar meals. A number of the ingredients I used today are on sale right now. Don't forget, the monthly delivery service is the best way to order if you want the best deal. It's the only way to unlock wholesale pricing, monthly specials, and free shipping over $99. It's a great tool to help you keep your prepping on track and help you stock up over time in manageable amounts. But if you don't want to purchase every month, it's also super easy to skip months or even turn it right off until you're ready to order again. There's no minimum commitment. So it's really just a great tool for saving money. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone or someones who might enjoy it also. You can even set up a meal in a jar party or a meal in a jar swap with your friends. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a chicken emoji or a rice emoji or both down in the comments. And for another twist on a chicken and rice meal, check out this video next. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you next time.